And
I don't know why
three,
it did
two,
that.
one, we are recording.
Hi, everyone. Welcome back to the Scott and Tim Show. Today, we are here with artist Mary Fahl. Mary is a veteran of the Stoltz Listening Room and has been there, Scott, I don't know, 4 or 5 times.
At least, yeah.
His show always sells out, and it sells out quickly. And we are hosting her again, this time virtually, on June 13th at 7 p.m. And Mary, we want to thank you for doing that for us. Real quickly, before we start talking about your music, which I love, how are you doing these days? How are you handling everything?
Well, you know, I'm lucky that I live in a very bucolic setting, and I have a garden that is we put a lot of work into, you know, a vegetable garden. But I love it, and I like getting my hands dirty, and I've been obviously very, very upset and heartbroken, like most people out there, and it's a complex and disturbing situation. But at the same time, I take great pains to create what I think of as a psychic firewall, you know, and I've been able over these past months, I don't often have time to read. I love to read these stacks and stacks of books there. And so there've been, beautiful things about being cooped up during this whole COVID virus situation. But I'm lucky that I live on a hilltop. I'm removed from kind of the rest of the world in a lot of ways. So I haven't had that bad. My normal life is in like semi-lockdown anyway, so it's not that different. I mean, I could go to the CVS and the ShopRite and everything, but but yeah, the underlying stress of all of this, well, it's just been hard on everybody. It's just unsettling in every way. And now with everything happening now, I've been listening to a lot of music. And in fact, the other morning, I started listening to, I have go-to people, that are the people I love that feed my soul. One of those is Mary Gaucher.
Mm-hmm.
And she's just there's such a spiritual center to what she does. I just started crying. I couldn't stop. And but I think everybody feels that way. So it's probably the one thing we all share right now, is that everybody is deeply, deeply disturbed. But I've been playing music and working on new things, and I'm hoping that out of all of this there comes a lot of really interesting art and songwriting and poetry and everything. I think it's a good time to dig down deep. There's such a charge in the air, and that always fuels all kinds of creativity. So
it's such a great answer, and I've got several questions that come off of that. I guess the first two are, where do you live, and what is a psychic firewall?
Oh God, a psychic firewall is, yes, all of this is going on out there, but at the same, there's tumult, and this is just part of being human. I think maybe most of us have been spoiled living in certain parts of the United States, but if you live in other parts of the world, you've experienced this kind of tumult and tragedy, and on a consistent basis. I mean, imagine living in Iraq or Yemen.
Yeah.
This is your life on a daily basis. So we've all been spoiled. But I think in the midst of that, what is it that Camus said? That you have to find that invincible summer inside yourself. That's a psychic firewall. That somewhere inside you, you have to find that place inside your soul that is unperturbed, So that's what I call, and I do it with reading and with music and with meditation, and with my garden. My garden is sort of where I, that's my happy place.
Find your zen
And
there.
what? Yeah, absolutely. I mean, it's just, the world will go on, and these incidents will come and go and come back again. But, a garden is a reminder that there are cycles to everything, and there's growth and decay and rebirth, and you just see it down there. And, I guess, and I always feel as if it's just sort of like my job is to serve. And the way I serve best is by doing what I do and keeping myself on an even keel,
Right.
Gotcha. Yeah. Well,
Right.
I've got a few questions going back a few years. The Other Side of Time, it's a 2003 release of yours.
Yes.
That was put out by Sony Odyssey.
Mhm.
And again, that was kind of a new venture for Sony, splitting off and doing a side venue, if you will. Can you give me a little input on that, of kind of where you were at that period of time creating that album? And if there's any background you can give us to Sony, why they kind of went that Odyssey?
Oh, I have, yeah, it was an amazing period for me, because after October Project, I didn't write for October Project.
Right.
And so I had to learn I knew if I wanted to continue in this business, I had to learn to be a writer. And that was daunting. It was one of the most frightening things I've ever done, because, the songwriting in October Project was really good. Pretty consistently good. So that was a very high bar. And also, just as a singer, I don't have an ego in songwriting. I mean, if I write a bad song, I'm not going to sing it. I'm going to throw it away. I have to love and really feel strongly. I have, because I'm going to sing that song over and over and over again. It has to be interesting to me. It has to move me on a deep level. And so I started writing with Bob Riley from a band called Grace Pool. And I wrote with Ramsey McLean, who was the lyricist for all of the early Conic records. And they're just different people here and there. And I wrote a lot of bad songs. And then I started writing better songs. You have to, one thing I've learned, you have to have the courage to be bad. I mean, that's part of the ticket to get in. You
Right.
have to be embarrassed. It's price of admission. So but once I felt like I had a group of songs that I felt were strong, really, like, this is a good song, I love it. Songs like Paolo, that was a song where I felt, I like that, this is it. I put a band together, and I hired, and I had a day job at the time that was very lucrative, and I was working out of my home. But I had the money to hire people and record, and I hired a group of people: Byron Isaacs, Glenn Patcha, Fiona McBain, and that core group of people that I hired ended up subsequently forming their own band later, and that band was Olabelle. So
That's great. Yeah.
I chose well.
Yeah.
And they were just people with an amazing talent, amazing sensibility that resonated with what I was doing. And so I took that band out, and I made a little EP of 4 songs. The 4 songs, and I released it as a record, just to see if there was anybody out there. I had no idea if I still had a fan base or anything. And I got a booking agent, and I began to play around and take that band out, and never thinking that anybody would sign me again. I was, I don't know, my late 30s, 40, that period. And so I thought, well, if that's the case, then who cares? I'm doing this for the fans that are left and for myself and for the sheer love of doing what I do. And I started to incorporate songs like Ben Indi Habibi, which is on the Sony Classical record. I like medieval music. I like opera, you know, and I thought, well, if I'm going to do it just for myself, there's no commercial reason to do this, then who cares? And it was that material that brought me to the attention of a sort of crossover label that started to come down to my shows, and they started talking to me about perhaps signing me. And at the time they were going to put me together with a producer that had never produced anything similar to me before, and I didn't have a good feeling about it, and I was thinking to myself, well, I don't know. And then suddenly I get a call from Sony Classical that they want me to come up in a week, and they want me to audition for Peter Gelb, who was the head of Sony at the time.
Right.
And I guess Peter was looking around for things beyond just the classical realm. And they were creating this Odyssey label and looking for artists. And so I went up and I sang Ben Indi Habibi, and I sang a couple of my own songs. And then Peter wanted me to sing an aria. And I said, you know, this is Sony Classical. This man is now the head of the Met, okay?
Right, yeah, we know.
And I said, you know, well, I said, Peter, you know, I'm not Renee Fleming. I'm not an opera singer. I mean, I don't even have a voice that would fit into any, you know, operatic category. I just sing it because I love it. And he said, yes, we know that, but we'd like you to do it anyway. And I said, well, wait, what should I sing, Nessun Dorma? And I remember them saying, do you know it? And I did know it, because years earlier, many years earlier, when I was just out of university and I was living in New York and I had no money, and I was living in a horrible apartment, in Brooklyn. And I remember this was a summer that was blazingly hot, and my air conditioning broke, and I didn't have enough money to fix it. And I would come home from waitressing job after waitressing job, because I am the worst waitress in the world, and I was getting fired. And it was just awful. I was awful.
You're probably doing a really good job. You're probably just too worried about it, Mary.
No. I was just a bad waitress. And so I, you know, well, I'll give you an example of that. But anyway, I would come home and I would just be so depressed and thinking, oh, my life is going nowhere. I don't know what to do with myself. And so to get my mind off of my troubles, I always sort of take on something big. Just a project or something. It just works for me. And so what I did as my project was I would fill up the bathtub with cool water, and I would get in, and I decided I was going to learn every Pavarotti aria that there was. And because I don't speak Italian, so I had to learn it all phonetically, which means, you know, I'd have to listen to it over and over again, and then, you know, read the little waterlogged booklet of lyrics. And but I did, and you know, it was the music is so beautiful and enthralling, and you know, it just transported me to another place. And once you learn something like that phonetically, once you learn those songs, for some reason they park in a different part of your brain, so you never forget them. It's like when you learn a Shakespearean sonnet, it lodges in your brain, I think because it rhymes. And anyway, I never forgot those songs. So it was very easy for me to call up Nessun Dorma, and I sang Nessun Dorma for them. And I remember looking out over New York City, because this was up in the 550 Madison Avenue, the big Sony building. And I should have been a wreck that day because, you know, it's very difficult to showcase for record labels. It's so awkward, you know, and there are suits sitting there and they're just kind of like this. And I somehow, this immense wave of peacefulness came over me. And I was looking out over the city, and I was thinking about all of my ancestors who had come here. And I know I get a little choked up when I think about this. I'm also a little emotional lately, so just
That's okay.
ignore it.
That's okay.
You know what I
We
mean?
all
Just
are,
ignore
trust
it,
me.
because it's very on the surface right now. So
Sure.
just little. I'm going to dab a little bit here, but I felt they were in the room with me. I mean, I know that sounds insane, but I felt it, and I sang for them. And Peter, at the end of that, he said, "Come over here and sit down next to me." And I went over and sat down, and he said, "We'd really like you on this label. What do you think about that?" And
Wow, it's quick.
it was amazing, because normally, you know, labels don't do that. They kind of ding around with you, and I was thrilled. And it's interesting because I have witnesses in the room that day. My producer, Jeffrey Lesser, was there, and the pianist was there. And they both said, when all of the suits left, they looked at me. I remember Jeffrey saying, "That was amazing. I've never felt anything like that," because they felt it in the room too. Something strange and you know, I know magical is like an overused word, but something was vibrating in that room. Everybody felt it.
Well, it's one
Even
of those
this-
organic things. You can't explain. It just
You
happened.
can't explain it. And I've done showcases where that was not the case. Okay,
We
I
all
wish
have.
that was the case, but it wasn't. Normally, I get very stiff and nervous. You know. Anyway, that's the story. So, and then when they signed me, you know, the other side of time, I think it has aged well, but at the time that it came out, I think it confused radio very much. I don't know if it would be the case now, because radio really isn't that important anymore. I mean, it isn't. I don't listen to the radio anymore. I mean, everything is podcasts, or I listen, you know, Spotify. And, you know, I use Pandora all the time. Yeah. I've made my peace with streaming, because it's brought to me so many artists that I wouldn't have known about ever. So it's really expanded my musical universe. And I assume that I have gained fans around the world from it. And it is what it is. You know, you move on. And but at the time, I think people were expecting that third October Project record at the time. And that's not what it was, because Sony wanted me. I think they didn't know what to do with me. Whoops, there's a sound there. I don't know what
Sorry.
Is that a bus by you, Tim?
And they wanted, but they wanted me they wanted me to write for film, which I did. I wrote the lead song for Gods and Generals, and I recorded that. They wanted me to sing an aria. So I just think radio was thinking, what is this? But I called it The Other Side of Time, because I wanted to take you on, you know, I studied history. I'm so fascinated, I still am, by all those things. So I put Ben Indi Habibi on there, and a song from the Civil War, for the Civil War. And I wanted it to take you on a journey, you know. I get very bored with albums that every single song sounds the same, you know. And so that was what I did. And I got to sing with an orchestra, which was one of the most thrilling things that has ever happened to me. It was, you know, you hear, there's something, you write a song in your head, you know, and you're out walking and you're working on it and working on it. And then there's that moment when that melody that sort of came into your head and you worked on, suddenly you hear this grand orchestra playing it, and it's just one of the most astonishing experiences. Anyway, so that was a wonderful thing. And so that was The Other Side of Time. And then after The Other Side of Time, Peter Gelb left Sony soon after and went to the Met. And then BMG came in, and everyone I knew at Sony, the whole staff that worked with me was gone. It was like there was tumbleweed through the hallways of Sony Classical. In fact, they were giving away audio equipment. They gave me, take what you want, turntables, speakers, and I remember loading up my car. And so, you know, obviously they didn't. I toured a little bit, but they didn't renew the contract after that. And so I didn't know what to do with myself, and I was very heartbroken that all of that had gone away, because it was a beautiful recording experience and had these fantastic musicians working with me and great producer. And and then I you know, for me, it's like I went home and I was in a depression for a little bit, but this is what always happens. I think, well, wash your face. I put on my favorite fur hat. And I went out and I got myself a new manager, and I said, let's get to work. Let's find something for me to do. And that something ended up being From the Dark Side of the Moon. And they put me together with two fabulous producers, one of David Werner and Mark Doyle. And Mark Doyle is still my a producer, music director, and you know, he's just a multi-talented guy and a great human. And
that album was released in 2011.
Well, it was never really released because, again, it's like, we had Bob Clearmountain mix it, and it was just a beautiful experience. And just as this record was going to come out, V2 had released two big records. I think it was the Moby record and a White Stripes record. And I think it was that or a Jack White record. But anyway, they had given huge advances. They ran out of money, basically, and they were bought out. And then so right now, I think whatever remnant of V2 America is left is like an accountant in an office with a visor and a ledger. You know, that's all that's left of it. And so they gave us all, people who had records coming out, they gave us lifeboats, and I bought the rights back to the record, and you know, I sell it. They had given me these boxes of advance copies that I was selling at shows. And then recently, this is fascinating, we thought that the Bob Clearmountain is probably the best surround mix guy, one of the three best, I think, out there. And he had done, as he does with all his records, a surround mix of From the Dark Side of the Moon. And it's a record that was really meant to be heard in an immersive situation.
Right.
But and I had thought, you know, well, maybe we should release it, but it had been lost in a fire. The mastering engineer couldn't find it. It was gone. And then Mark, over the winter, found it among his audio files, a version of it. And I said, well, you know, I don't know. And then he burned a copy and sent it to a very dear friend of mine, who was an audio file, and he heard it and he called me back, and it's a very poignant story, because this is a fellow, Rick Pepe is his name, who was dying at the time. And he had this, you know, I think, get his mind off of his pain by listening to all these surround albums. And he played it, and he said, Mary, I'm going to tell you something, and I want you to listen to me. This is the Hope Diamond of surround mixes. And I said, oh, you're just saying that because you like me. And he said, no, you must release this. And he convinced me. And so we had it remastered, and I had all new artwork done for it. I was never crazy about the artwork. I didn't feel it was appropriate, the V2 artwork. And so I love this new artwork. Oh wait, let me take the packaging off of it. But anyway, so I'm releasing this now, and I've gotten two amazing reviews. One of them is from one of the gurus of surround, life and surround, and he has recently said that he thinks maybe it may be the surround album of the year. And there it is. It's From the Dark Side of the Moon.
That is awesome.
And then on there's I guess a blog or a forum that a lot of audio people write to and share things on, and it's gotten just amazing review after amazing review. And I'm not saying that because it's my work. First of all, this was a group effort. I couldn't have done this by myself. This is a real producer's album. It really is, and it's so dense and layered. And you have to hear this in surround. It just was meant to be that way. So I've just from word of mouth, I have sold so many of these just on my website. I haven't formally released it yet. I haven't even really made an announcement that it's just from word of mouth. I've already reimbursed all the costs that it went into remastering, which is amazing.
That's really amazing.
So it's an organic, it's completely organic. And anyway, I'm going to make a formal, and I felt it would be in poor taste at this time to sort of be promoting something, it didn't feel right to me. So I feel like maybe its time has come, because the way I approached From the Dark Side of the Moon, I didn't want to make a cover record. I wanted to reinterpret the whole thing. And I feel that my contribution, besides just my singing, was, I think, the philosophical attitude that underlies the whole recording. And so I brought a lot of my interests into the spoken word parts of it, and into a lot of the chants. I have to replace my vocals, my layered vocals replace a lot of the musicians that were on the original, the instrumentation. So I had to be a lot of the instrumentation, and I needed to find these chants, repetitive chants. And so I remember I have a lot of I like comparative religion and things like subject matter like that. And I had several books on Egyptology and the ancient Egyptian religion. And I had opened up, I was thinking maybe there's something in there. And so I was looking for something to open the record with that would replace that heartbeat, the classic Pink Floyd, boom, 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 boom. And they said, and I thought, well, it should be something percussive. And, I'm thinking that pyramid on the front of the original Pink Floyd record, I'm thinking maybe something Egyptian. That's ancient Coptic is very percussive language. And so I looked up, and I'm looking at all these Egyptian words, and I thought, what's the word for magic? Invocation, because that's what Heka, Heka. So I open up the record with an invocation of magic and the gods. So it's Heka, Heka, Heka. And I also was reading that when the Egyptians would do these huge ceremonial invocation of the gods, they would just repeat their names over and over again. And so then I go into the names of the various gods. So it's,
I think that's one of the things I really find.
Sejem, Ketet, Wehem, Nebhet, Sejem. And so it's like, there you go. And I started to invoke the spirit of the moon and the spirit of magic. And then, the record begins with Breathe. And Mark played all of the instruments on this record. It was a tour de force on his part. And then, other parts, I needed something that would be profound when there's this explosion before time comes in. And I was thinking, what is it? What is that thing that comes in that just destroys the world? And then I was remembering in Faust, in Goethe's Faust, when Dr. Faustus asks Mephistopheles, the devil, he said, who are you? And Mephistopheles says, I am the spirit who denies. And so I thought, that's perfect. I am the spirit who denies. And then there's this explosion. It's all like stuff like that.
Nice.
It's all in there. And anyway, and then I was using, the Novus Ordo Seclorum on the front of the dollar bill, out of order, out of chaos order, and us and them, Novus Ordo Seclorum, and that's the counterpoint to the other chant, which is in Sanskrit, and it was what Robert Oppenheimer uttered when he first beheld the atomic bomb. He was the chief scientist on the Manhattan Project, and he was a scholar of Sanskrit, and under his breath he muttered, what the translation is, "I have become death, the destroyer of worlds," and that's Utu samavada sakaham ubavaskabhavasiyatam. And I thought that was perfect for us and them. I was sort of thinking at the time, he was this part of the military industrial complex, and he's beholding this atomic bomb, and he's uttering this ancient chant, and I thought it was perfect. So
they might redo the whole. I mean, that's a great story, Mary, and I mean, all that's going on in this incredible, done by the surround guru guy.
Oh my God! Yeah, and the thing is that Bob Clearmountain took this recording to just another whole level. I mean, I can't imagine anybody else. I just can't imagine anyone else, sort of being the engineer on this record. He's as much a part of that record as I am. And,
right. Sure. Yeah.
Oh my God! And Mark convinced me that I had to release this, because he sat me down in his living room, and he's also this surround set immersive audio, fanatic, I think, at this point. And he said, "You have to hear this," and he cranked it up and sat me down in the living room with a glass of wine, and it was this visceral experience. I don't have that in my house. I'm very low tech, and I mean, it was like it vibrates inside your body. It was amazing, and I heard things in the immersive mix that I forgot I had done. Little things here and there, and just the sonically, it's an astonishing experience. So. Anyway, I don't like to promote things, but if anyone is interested, it is on my website. And if you're an audiophile, I do think that this is a must-have. So it's From the Dark Side of the Moon.
Well, good luck with it, Mary. I mean, and you should promote it. It sounds like from your pre-sales that it sounds like something that I don't want to, you're a wonderful person to listen to. You're very charming and so thorough and so, kind and just great to listen to. We can't go on forever, but one of my questions was going to be, how would you actually try to get people to latch on to this beyond your the people who've already bought? But in
I
any
don't know.
case,
I mean, I've been shopping it around a little bit to some European labels, because it'd be very nice for people to have access to it in Europe. Without having to pay these massive customs fees that they have to pay when they order it from me. And I'd really rather and you can download it on Innovative Audio, which is a download site. And I'm sorry, honey, I'm sorry. Thank you, Rich. That's my husband. Immersive Audio. And so if you have to have sort of the surround apparatus for all to appreciate it, but if you want to download the surround mix, it's on Immersive Audio. So I would give that a try as well.
And maybe an ironic question, and Scott, I mean, if you have anything else, but how, with all of that surround and all of that, working with Peter Gell from the Met on June 13th. On June 13th, you're going to be doing a virtual concert for the Soul Twisting Room in the Avalon with just you and your guitar. Can you talk about that show a little bit, the difference?
I did one a few weeks ago, and it was very strange at first, because I'm so used to having an audience in front of me, and there's that interaction. So it was very odd. It took me a little while to adjust, but once I got going, it's going to look like just the way I am. I mean, I'm going to sit with my guitar right here, and I didn't want too much. You know, I watch a lot of people that do this, and I also am sort of addicted to various, you know, YouTube channels that I love. And I don't like it when people lean forward and start reading a lot of the questions. I kind of get a little bored with that. So I tried not to do too much of that. But I'm going to do a regular show. I have some new songs that I've been working on that I'm going to incorporate in. It's an interesting experience. I try to make it as intimate as possible. I notice I don't like people that sit way back or stand when they do these online concerts. I think it's better to be close up and intimate. That's just my opinion. Mm-hmm. But I'm thinking that it would be nice to take some requests beforehand, maybe via Facebook or people writing to me, you know, or suggestions. I'm always looking for suggestions. I like working on interesting covers, things maybe I wouldn't have thought of. A lot of people lately have been, and I don't know why, but I've gotten it from several people that I should work on some Procol Harum. That's what everyone thinks I should do.
Yeah.
So maybe I should do it. I don't know. So and it hasn't been one. It's been several. I don't know why that is, but my husband handed me a note. So it's my husband handed me a note. It's immersiveaudioalbum.com, Rich? Yeah, immersiveaudioalbum.com.
And that is Mary Fahl's sort of private release of her Dark Side of the Moon.
Surround mix that you can download if you have a surround setup. immersiveaudioalbum.com.
It is a joy to listen to. I listened to it last evening in surround sound.
In surround?
Wow.
You have the setup and all of that?
Yeah, it'll blow your mind.
Am I right?
Blew my mind.
Yes, it's amazing, awesome. Right?
Yes.
I have to tell you, I can't go back and listen to the regular audio CD anymore. It doesn't do it for me. No, I can't go back.
I understand.
That's great. That's great. Scott, you want to have anything else, or?
I think we're pretty good. We're looking forward to seeing you on June 13th. It's going to be great.
I can't wait to come back down there too. You know, I love that part of Maryland.
Thank you.
That whole Tidewater, I love it there. My parents used to take my sister and I down there. They had very close friends that lived outside of Easton, Maryland. They lived right on the Choptank River.
Okay.
And I just we used to love it down there. We used to go crabbing and all that. I really like that part of the world.
Well, we can't wait to have you back live in the Soul System Room in the theater. That'll be a little bit down the road, unfortunately for us. But June 13th, we'll do this virtual concert, and we can't wait to see you.
Can't wait to be there. And so thank you so much for doing this. And we should, let me know how to share this on Facebook, on my page, all that kind of stuff.
You got it. We'll talk. I'm going to stop the recording now. Thanks so much for having us. Tim, you have any last words?
No, thanks a lot, Mary. I love your music. I wanted to get to a couple other things. I want to talk about hermeticism a little bit.
What?
Hermeticism.
Do you have like 8 hours?
Yeah, it'll take more time than what we have.
And I'm glad you got into Peter Gelb a little bit, because I was going to ask you about what the definition of a contralto singer was, which you seem to be described as.
Contralto?
Yeah.
I guess it's a female alto voice. It's not a soprano. Like a mezzo would be like, I don't sing like that.
Right.
I honestly, to me, there's a reason I like those tenor arias, because my range feels more like a tenor's range.
Well, it was really enjoyable listening to your work to get prepared for this interview. I really strongly recommend anyone you know, the one thing that I loved about it was I listened to an album and then I listened to the live versions and the production value. You can tell how thorough you are with all of your art, and you know, for just the lay people out there who, and maybe you're not a big audiophile, you're not into the Pink Floyd, but one of the best descriptions I saw was it's a Peter Gabriel does the Indigo Girls, does Enya. You know what I mean? And I think that's a great way to sort of wrap it around. And so, but Marius, I love your music. I'm so glad to have discovered you. And I'm looking forward to seeing what happens on June 13th at 7 o'clock. We'll take care of all the tech stuff. Scott will handle all that. And thank you so much.
Yeah, hang tight. I'm gonna stop recording now. Thanks again, and we'll see you soon.
Thank you.